A friend of mine in Illinois actually knows a teacher that comes to school as a furry and wears ears and a tail and uses a litter box at the front of the classroom to relieve himself.
This is Andrew Wommack. I'm not really sure I entirely believe that story. That is a little far-fetched. At the front of the classroom. Anyways, he's a televangelist. He is on Kenneth Copeland's TV network, the Victory Channel. Kind of like Cartoon Network or Oxygen or E or whatever. It's like that. Seriously, this dude's not a nobody, okay? And he is out here saying the most unhinged stuff imaginable. Now, that one's pretty bad, but I've got some more stuff I want to talk about with him. Check this one out. Mid-January 2022. I just want to give you a nice, well-formed idea of who he is before we really hit the new stuff, okay? Mid-January 2022, he comes out here and he says this.
I tell you, partnership in the gospel is the greatest thing you can do. When we get to heaven, I can guarantee you there's not a single one of you that's going to be saying, I wish you hadn't have encouraged me to give so much and that I'd have got my 5th flat screen TV. You're going to come up to me and hug my neck and kiss me and say, thank you, thank you, thank you for getting that money out of my pocket.
That's just crooked, dude. When I hear things like this, it makes me wonder, does he even believe the things that he says? Does he even believe that he's going to heaven? If there is a heaven and a hell, I cannot imagine that somebody like this would be going there. I just can't. Not somewhere I'd want to be if he was there, at least. So he comes out on stage early January 2023, and he has some things to say about COVID. Now, there are some clips that I've had in the back that I haven't been able to play this entire time because there were some really stringent rules at YouTube about what you were and were not allowed to talk about. Understandably, I'm all for it. I totally get it. You know, there's a lot of misinformation about COVID and other things floating around all over the internet, and I get the need for moderation. I'm not going to complain after seeing what Elon Musk did to Twitter, but I feel like I'm comfortable playing the stuff now because YouTube's pretty well clarified their COVID misinformation policy to be one where as long as you're debunking it and calling it out and pointing out how false this stuff is, it's okay to play it. So I'm going to pull those clips out of retirement and we're going to take a look at some of his more disturbing COVID misinformation takes. He just said something that was really questionable and weird and confusing the other day. So let's take a look at this one. Early January 2023. Listen to what he had to say here.
Man, when people get sick, they want to go to the doctor and take a pill. What you need to do is take the gospel, amen, and sow this seed in your heart, and the word of God will be health. Psalms 107, verse 20.
Okay, so what he's saying is that you don't need a pill. You don't need medicine. Modern medicine is worthless to you if you're a Christian, is what he's saying. You don't need a doctor. Nobody should ever go to a doctor, apparently, according to this guy. Because if you read the Bible, it will cure you of your ailments. That's what he believes. And that's what he said in some of the older clips that I haven't been able to cover up to this point. We're going to take a look at those in just a second. Just saying this to a crowd of how many people? I mean, he's on the Victory Channel, the Victory Network on TV. Millions of people listen to this guy's sermons. At least millions. At least millions have heard what he said here. And of those millions, what percentage do you think believed him and dropped their doctor? Or, hell, may have like a lump on their leg or their chest, or they're coughing a lot, or, any number of medical problems that need to be addressed immediately. What percentage of people have these problems and heard him say this and chose not to call the doctor, chose not to address it because of what he said? If he's got millions of viewers and only 1%, hell, 0.1% of his listening audience falls for what he has to say, that's still thousands of people, thousands of lives potentially destroyed because this guy is irresponsible with his platform. It's not even irresponsible. This is what he intends to do. This isn't just reckless. This isn't like, oh, well, I misspoke. Maybe I should have been more careful. No, he's saying this intentionally. You don't need a doctor if you are a Christian. That's what he's saying. It gets even worse. Keep listening here.
There's not 1 out of 1,000 Christians that believes that. Most Christians believe you just have to get sick. It's just part of life. Flu season. You don't have to do that. I'm not a perfect example, but man, I don't get sick. I don't believe in getting sick. I've actually had people that had COVID and they said, don't touch me, I got COVID. I said, come here. And I said, you touch me, those COVID germs will die. Amen.
If you are the perfect Christian, you will never get sick even from COVID. That is so destructive, I don't even know where to start with it. It is so deeply wrong. He is literally endangering people's lives by saying this kind of thing. Thousands of people, if only 0.1%, listen to this message of his. That is by no stretch of the imagination the only example of it. This is like a consistent belief that he harps on constantly. Listen to this one, 2020. He said something really similar. This is when COVID was an issue.
We were promised that no sickness would even come nigh our dwelling. And Daniel, something I've been studying just in the last couple of days based on all of this was Exodus 23:25, and that verse says that you shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall take away all sickness away from the midst of thee. And I looked up those words in the Hebrew, and the word take and away, the word on either side of sickness, it literally means to turn off.
Wow.
He will turn off sickness, and it was put in there twice just to emphasize that, you know, whatever receptors you have in your body that make you receptive to sickness, he'll turn it off.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
That's a great revelation.
I've got all of that on our website. You can go study those things.
That's going to be a no from me, dog. Yeah, that would be awesome if it were real. Unfortunately, it's not. And again, millions of listeners, if only 0.1% believe what he's saying here, which certainly more than that do, he is endangering thousands of lives with this kind of garbage. Seriously. But you know what? Let's actually look this up. There's something called the interlinear version of the Bible. I don't know if you've heard of this before, but you can actually look at the original text of the Bible, the Aramaic or the Hebrew or the Greek or whatever language it was written in. You can look at the original language and find out exactly what it's saying. If you remember, just now he made a very specific claim about what's in that book. So let's find out if he's lying or not, because I find people like this tend to lie nonstop. Let's listen to the claim again.
And I looked up those words in the Hebrew, and the word take and away, the word on either side of
Exodus 23:25. Interlinear. Let's just look at the original language, shall we? Exodus 23:25. This is a direct translation. It hasn't been changed to be more readable by an American audience or anything. This is an exact translation. Your water and your bread, and he will bless your God Yahweh, so you shall serve from the midst of you sickness, and I will take away. That is a literal, direct translation. This is his translation. You shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water, and I will take sickness away from the midst of thee. Now let's listen to the claim one more time and see if he's completely full of it.
Take and away, the word on either side of sickness, it literally means to turn off.
What?
It literally means to turn off. Actually, there is a word in Hebrew that translates to take and one that translates to away. As it turns out, this is the word. It's pronounced wahasiroti, apparently. I'm probably saying it wrong. Forgive me. But here are some other contexts in which it's used. I will remove. Remove, I will take, and I will take, will take, and remove. It means to remove or to take away, literally. That's actually literally what it means. And apparently the word wahasiroti is a combination of take away. So I have no idea what he's talking about here. He says it means to turn off. No, it doesn't. It does not mean that. There is no example in the interlinear Bible of this word meaning to turn off. I don't know where he found that. I don't know why he says it. But again, I happen to know that this guy likes making things up pretty regularly, so it wouldn't surprise me if he just made this one up.
In a way, the word on either side of sickness, it literally means to turn off.
Wow.
He will turn off sickness, and it was put in there twice just to emphasize that, you know, whatever receptors you have in your body that make you receptive to sickness, he'll turn it off.
Just completely made up. Completely fabricated right out of the ether. Of course. Listen to this next one, mid-July 2020. If you remember, around this time, COVID really started to hit and be taken seriously around February 22nd. I think that's when the stock market just tanked. That's kind of the gauge that I use. That's when everybody started taking things seriously, right? So February is when it started. Trump claimed that by the end of April it would be over. By mid-July, when this clip came out, everybody was taking it seriously and recognized that this is going to be a long-term thing that we have to deal with. Okay, so scientists were coming out with studies and talking about how we can solve this. We'd been social distancing for a while by now. We were quarantining. We were wearing masks, the whole 9 yards. We were in the swing of things by this point in time. Now listen to what he had to say mid-July 2020.
Did you know if you get tested for the COVID-19 virus, if you've had a flu shot, then you test positive?
No, there is absolutely no excuse for this kind of misinformation at the time. This took the most cursory, basic amount of research to find. At no point was there ever even the idea that you might test positive in the scientific community if you have a flu shot. You know why? Because it's not the flu. Scientists know that. They knew that then. They knew it from the very beginning. It was never like the flu. Now, Donald Trump and some far-right conservative extremists who refuse to listen to science to any degree came out and asked questions like this. But there's no excuse for this. He should have known better. He should have just done literally any amount of research to figure this out. And he just came out here on his show and stated it as a fact in front of millions of people.
Then you test positive. If you've had a cold, you test positive. If
No, again, false.
you've had the flu, because all of those things are COVID. COVID-19 is the 19th different COVID virus. A cold, the common cold is a...
God, dude. Just, we knew that this is complete nonsense at the time. Seriously. This isn't like hindsight is 2020. This is like, you're not like even looking things up, just the most basic stuff. Who told him this? It's clear to me that the guy has somebody in his ear that he listens to and just straight up believes literally anything out of their mouths. Like he questions nothing from whoever he gets this information from. Complete nonsense, top to bottom. COVID-19 is the 19th virus. What? What were the other 18 then? This is ridiculous. The flu is not a coronavirus. There is a coronavirus that is responsible for some percentage of the cold viruses that get circulated around are coronaviruses, a type of coronavirus. But most of the cold viruses that infect people with colds are rhinoviruses, I believe. Hang on, let me look this up. Is rhinovirus a coronavirus? A coronavirus is named that because of the shape of the particle, like the shape of the actual virus itself. It's shaped like a crown, and corona means crown. So anyway, that's why coronaviruses are named coronaviruses in the first place. I'm not sure if rhinoviruses are coronaviruses. I don't think they are. I don't believe that rhinoviruses are coronaviruses, though. And rhinoviruses make up like 40% of the viruses that are responsible for the common cold. So he has no idea what he's talking about. Again, the most basic, cursory amount of research would have debunked what he heard. But he heard it from somebody that he knows, and he just repeated it blindly without asking any questions at all in front of millions of people. I mean, this guy falsely prophesied about Donald Trump and a bunch of other things. falsely prophesied, lied, blatantly, flat out lied, claimed he heard God's voice when he did not. There's no reason to trust a word out of this guy's mouth. But there are gullible suckers out there believing everything he says anyways.
Common cold is a COVID virus. The flu is a COVID virus.
No, a COVID virus. No, COVID is a very specific illness caused by a coronavirus. That's what COVID is. COVID is an illness caused by a virus.
The flu is a COVID virus.
No.
And so anyway, they're saying that this inflates the numbers.
Okay, so what he's claiming here falsely is that people can test positive for COVID if they have the cold or the flu, and that is artificially inflating numbers. No to all of that. At no point in time did anybody ever test positive for COVID because they had the flu or because they had a common cold. That is completely false. Didn't even bother trying looking this stuff up. I mean, this is not the guy's first rodeo, if you will. I feel like that word fits with the vest that he's wearing right now. Not his first rodeo, not his first hoedown with false information. Check this one out. February 2nd, 2021, comes out here and, again, blatantly lies to the audience.
You know, real quickly, we need to take questions, but real quickly, when my wife and I first got married, we were poor and we lived in a house that wasn't insulated. And so we had a gas heater on the inside to keep the place warm, but because there was no insulation, the walls sweat. And in the closets, especially where it was dark and stuff like this, we just had mildew everywhere. And you know what I did? Instead of taking something and cleaning it off and repainting or something, I took Deuteronomy chapter 28 and read it. Mildew, you are accursed. Then I turned over to Galatians 3:13. I'm redeemed from you. And I spoke to mildew and cursed it. And did you know it went away without me having to clean it and do something?
Totally, I bet. It was because he cursed the mildew, not that his wife came around behind him and cleaned it up. It was totally reading the Bible to the mildew that did it, right? Absolutely. That's just a flat-out lie. He's just lying. He is telling falsehoods right now, is what he's doing. Blatantly lying. Now, does he know that he's not telling the truth here? Is he aware that his wife cleaned it up behind him? Is this story even real? I don't know. I can't say. But I do know for a fact that he claimed to hear the voice of God, and he didn't. So that is at least one example of him lying blatantly to your face.
It was a curse, and I rebuked the curse, and I got free from that.
Okay, so I showed this clip at the very beginning, but I didn't really talk about it. Listen to this clip again, mid-September 2022. I just want to give you a well-formed idea of this guy's personality, exactly who he is.
A friend of mine in Illinois actually knows a teacher that comes to school as a furry and wears ears and a tail and uses a litter box at the front of the classroom to relieve himself.
He had to go all out with this, didn't he? It couldn't just be the teacher wore ears and a tail to the classroom. It had to be that he put a litter box in the classroom at the front of the classroom, in front of the desks and everything, and uses that litter box at the front of the classroom with students there, presumably. He couldn't just leave it at something actually believable. I mean, why would a teacher wear, a tail and ears to the classroom anyway? I guess I can think of a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was Spirit Week and they were dressing up for one of their special days or whatever. Plenty of reasonable explanations, but he had to take it a step further and make it a completely unbelievable story that his audience is going to believe anyways, no matter how unbelievable the story is. He literally said a teacher pees in a litter box at the front of a classroom in front of students and never got questioned on it. Just kept on going. The two people he's talking to right here just went along with it as though it was true. This attack on furries that he's doing here is really a veiled attack on the trans community. It doesn't seem like it at first glance, but that's really what it is. The idea that people can be like any gender they want, or any gender other than the one that they were born as is absolutely abhorrent to him. It's despicable to him. He can't stand the idea. And in an effort to demonize the trans community, he conflates changing your gender with changing your gender to be that of an animal or something. This is just an old 4chan meme that's being recycled right now. The idea of otherkin, where you're a wolf spirit or whatever. It's completely made up. Like, nobody actually does this. But the right uses this as an angle to attack the trans community. I mean, that one's pretty blatant, but he just comes out and attacks the trans community from time to time. Listen to this one. This is from 2021. He lays it on the line pretty clearly here.
This is something that's very politically incorrect. And
he's a martyr. He's going to say it anyways, and he's going to get canceled for it, right? He's a fighter for us.
Will be a lot of people will find this to be upsetting, but I tell you, the things that are happening in our nation, it is a doctrine of the devil. It's not just people with a different opinion.
Wow, what a brave soul to say things that are happening in the nation are doctrines of demons. He's so honorable. He's going to be canceled for this, for telling his church that Satan operates within the country. Wow, huh? Give the guy a round of applause. He's such a fighter for the common man.
It's not just some people have a different take on things. It is literally doctrines of the devil. They are taking children as young as 4 and 5 years old and telling them that you were born in the wrong body. You're actually a woman in a man's body, or a man in a woman's body.
No, they're not. This is completely made up. This is not happening anywhere in the entire country.
And they are surgically altering them and giving them hormone blockers and stuff.
Why would anybody... No, this is, I believe, against the law, isn't it? To give gender reassignment surgery on a 4 or a 5-year-old? Isn't this illegal? Like, nobody is doing this. It's completely made up, this entire thing. Again, something that he heard from somebody. Someone's in his ear, and they said, hey, did you know that if you have the flu, you will test positive for COVID? And instead of thinking critically about it for 15 seconds or doing the most cursory amount of research, he just comes out here and repeats it. Did you know they're doing gender reassignment surgery on 4 and 5-year-olds? No research necessary. Just come out here and get your audience whipped into a blood frenzy over it. That's who Andrew Wommack is.
I'm telling you, this is not just a different opinion, somebody that has a little different way of looking at things. It is a doctrine of demons. It is demonic. And the people who are doing it are being influenced and controlled by the devil.
The people who are giving gender reassignment surgery to 4 and 5-year-olds, they're being influenced by the devil? Okay.
These are doctrines of demons. That a man can just choose to be a woman. He can choose to go into a woman's restroom because he feels like a woman today.
Okay, that's not how it happens. Do you have any idea how complicated it is, how long it takes to be legally recognized as trans? Do you have any idea how hard it is to overcome the social barriers in place to prevent people from doing something like that? Do you have any idea how deeply ugly the bullying gets for people like this? Just like claiming all that stuff about COVID, I doubt he did a lick of research. I doubt he looked into it beyond just listening to what this friend of his is saying. I mean, he is completely disconnected from anything resembling reality. Everything this guy seems to believe is completely made up, fabricated problems that don't exist. And the quote-unquote problems that do exist, trans people existing, is personal freedom. That's free speech, baby. That's what America is ostensibly all about, right? Dude claims to be all about freedom of speech and personal freedom and liberty and justice and all that stuff. But when push comes to shove, he doesn't like any of that. What he likes is controlling other people, imposing his will and worldview on them at any cost. He was never about freedom of speech. He was never about liberty. He was always about forcing others to believe and behave the way he wants them to. That's how all of these televangelists and Christian nationalists view things. Trust me, I've been following these people for a while, and there's a common thread between them. Anyway, let me know what you think about this guy in the comments.